Hello, everyone. Have you ever wondered if everything you've been taught about wealth, about success, about securing your future, is fundamentally tragically wrong? What if the very act of clutching tighter to what you have, of building higher walls around your possessions, is precisely what locks you out of true abundance? What if the path to becoming truly, inexplicably rich lies not in taking, but in giving, not as a sacrifice, but as an ancient, hidden code, woven into the very fabric of existence, a secret whispered by forgotten sages and understood by angels? For millennia, humanity has chased prosperity with frantic hands and anxious hearts, convinced that more means secure, that accumulation is the ultimate triumph. But from the dust of ancient empires to the gleaming towers of our modern world, a deeper truth has echoed, a paradox so profound it defies our logic. The more you give, the richer you become. This isn't just a feel-good platitude. It is a cosmic principle, a hidden wealth code, encoded in sacred texts, demonstrated by prophets, and confirmed by the very patterns of the universe. Tonight we journey into the heart of this mystery, to unearth the biblical secrets, the psychological undercurrents, and the philosophical revelations that unveil this astonishing truth. Prepare to have your understanding of wealth, of life itself, irrevocably transformed, because what you are about to discover isn't just about money. It's about unlocking a current of blessing so powerful. In the beginning, before time was measured in breaths and heartbeats, there was a whisper, a divine intention, a grand design. The universe itself was birthed from an act of boundless giving, a cosmic outpouring of energy, light, and life. And within that primordial act, a fundamental law was established, an immutable principle that would govern all existence from the spin of galaxies. This was the first iteration of the wealth code, not yet written in scrolls, but etched into the very essence of creation. What is given returns. What flows outward creates space for more to flow in. But humanity, young and impressionable, quickly forgot this fundamental truth. Fear, a primordial shadow, crept into the heart of man, the fear of not enough, the fear of scarcity. It twisted the divine impulse to give. It began subtly, a slight clenching of the hand, a quiet murmur of mine. This fear birthed the first great conflict, not between nations, but within the human soul itself, a battle between the expansive heart of generosity and the contracting grip of avarice. Centuries spun into epochs, and the code remained, often dormant, sometimes glimpsed by enlightened souls, but largely obscured by the clamor of a world obsessed with acquisition. Yet, in the annals of history, there are echoes, stories of those who knowingly or unknowingly tapped into this divine current. They became living testaments to the power of giving, their lives transformed into epic sagas of unexpected. Their stories aren't just ancient tales. They are blueprints, maps to a prosperity that transcends currency and defies logic. Consider Abraham the patriarch, whose very name would become synonymous with faith. His journey began not with a promise of receiving, but with a divine command to give. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, God instructed him. Go to the land It was an act of profound surrender, a giving up of the known, the familiar, the secure. Imagine the internal tremor, the human instinct to cling to what he had. Ur of the Chaldees, his ancestral home, offered comfort, security, a known future. To abandon it for a desert trek into the unknown, at God's seemingly arbitrary command, felt like the ultimate divestment. Sarah, his beloved wife, must have harbored silent anxieties, unspoken fears for their future, for their childless state. Yet, Abraham, guided by a whisper deeper than human logic, gave up everything. He stepped into the void, trusting the invisible hand that guided him, and what did he receive? Not just a new land, but a covenant, a promise of descendants as numerous as the stars, a legacy. His giving created an empty vessel, a space for the miraculous to flow. His initial act of relinquishment was the first stone laid in a monumental edifice of divine provision. But the true test, the crucible that would forever etch the wealth code into Abraham's very being, came much later. Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mount. This command, delivered in the quiet of the night, must have torn through Abraham's heart like a celestial blade. Isaac, the son of promise, the laughter that filled their tent, the child through whom all nations would be blessed. To give fay him, fay up. It was an act of giving that transcended all earthly understanding, pushing the boundaries of human capacity for sacrifice. Sarah's tears, though unspoken in the text, surely stained his mind's eye. Every step towards Moriah was a battle against every paternal instinct, every fiber of his being screaming against the command. The knife in his hand, the bound boy on the altar fay, it was the ultimate confrontation with the fear of loss, the very apex of scarcity. Yet in that agonizing moment, Abraham's hand stayed firm, his heart resolute. He was ready to give his most precious possession, and in that ultimate act of surrender, an angel of the Lord intervened, a voice from the heavens piercing the dawn. "Do not lay a hand on the boy," the angel commanded. "Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." And behold, a ram caught in a thicket, a divine provision. Abraham had given everything, and in return he received not only his son back, but a reaffirmation of the covenant, an overflowing of blessing that would ripple through generations. The universe had responded to his complete trust, his absolute willingness to give, by opening floodgates of abundance that transcended his wildest dreams. It was a cosmic exchange, a divine principle made manifest. This principle, this code, wasn't exclusive to patriarchs and prophets. It permeated the lives of ordinary people, often in the most desolate circumstances. Consider the widow of Zarephath, a woman on the precipice of despair, facing the grim reality of famine. Her story is a stark, almost brutal illustration of the code at work amidst the shadow of death. She had nothing left but a handful of flour and a little oil fay enough for one last meal for herself and her son before they succumbed to starvation. Her world was contracting, shrinking to a single final act of consumption. Then a stranger arrived. Elijah, the prophet, weary and hungry, stood at her door. "Bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink," he requested. A small act easily given, but then the audacious request, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." Imagine the shock, the indignation that must have flickered across her face. Her entire remaining existence hinged on that meager portion. "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she declared, her voice laced with the bitterness of despair. "I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little olive oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Her words paint a vivid picture of absolute scarcity, of a world closing in, of hope extinguished. But Elijah, a conduit for the divine, understood the code. He saw not her poverty, but the potential for a miraculous expansion. "Don't be afraid," he urged. "Go home, but first make a small loaf of bread for me from what you have and bring it to me, and then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." Here lies the heart of the mystery. The prophet wasn't asking her to give from her surplus. He was asking her to give from her surplus. He was asking her to give from her. Every fiber of human logic would scream against this. Give away the last morsel? It's madness. It's suicide. Yet the widow, caught between the certainty of death and the desperate hope of a prophet's promise, made a choice to trust, a choice to give. She went, and she did as Elijah had said, and from that moment a miracle unfolded. The jar of flour did not run out, the jug of oil. Day after day she drew from an inexhaustible supply. The scarcity in her life evaporated, replaced by an ongoing, flowing abundance. Her act of giving from her absolute nothingness had activated a divine current, transforming her tiny, finite resources into an infinite wellspring. Her story isn't just about faith. It is a dramatic illustration of how the wealth code operates, not on the principles of arithmetic, but on the boundless generosity of the divine. It shows us that true giving isn't about the quantity, but the intention, not about what is left, but about the willingness to release. If you are finding this unraveling of ancient secrets as compelling as I am, consider hitting that subscribe. Your support helps us bring more hidden truths and transformative insights to light, and it's an act of giving that truly helps our channel grow. But what happens when this code is ignored, when humanity succumbs to the primal fear of scarcity and the seductive whispers of greed? The Bible is replete with warnings, not just abstract moralizing, but dramatic narratives illustrating the corrosive consequences of a closed fist and a hardened heart. Consider the rich young ruler, a man who seemed to have it all: youth, wealth, influence, and a sincere desire for eternal life. He approached Jesus asking, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" He had followed all the commandments, lived a righteous life by societal standards. He was a model citizen, a paragon of virtue. Yet Jesus saw past the external piety to the secret vault of his heart, the one area where the code was not active, where fear still held sway. "One thing you lack," Jesus told him. "Go, sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow." Sell fey everything fey? Give to the fey poor fey? This wasn't a suggestion. It was an invitation to activate the wealth code in its most radical form. It was an invitation to empty himself, to create space for an entirely different kind of treasure. But the young man's face fell. He had great wealth, and the thought of relinquishing it was simply too much. He turned away, dejected, unable to loosen the grip of his tragedy was that his wealth owned him. His refusal to give, his inability to embrace the code, meant he remained bound by the very things he sought to secure. He chose the illusion of earthly riches over the promise of eternal treasure, the limited over the boundless. His story is a powerful testament to the spiritual and psychological cost of clinging, of letting the fear of scarcity dictate our choices. It is a dramatic counterpoint to Abraham and the widow, illustrating the profound difference between a life of open-handed generosity and one of closed-fisted anxiety. He walked away poorer, not just in spirit, but in the truest sense of what wealth means in the cosmic ledger. The early Christian community, birthed in the fervor of Pentecost, understood this code with an astonishing clarity. They were a radical experiment in communal living, a living embodiment of the give, and it shall be given to you principle. Acts chapter 2 paints a vivid picture. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. This wasn't charity born of obligation, it was an overflow of joy, a profound understanding that in Christ their resources were not in. Why? Because the flow was constant. The code was fully activated. Giving was not a transaction, it was a celebration of unity, a dynamic exchange that ensured universal provision. But even within this nascent, spirit-filled community, the ancient shadow of fear and greed tried to assert itself. The story of Ananias and Sapphira stands as a chilling warning, a dramatic illustration of the dire consequences of violating the code through deception and a closed heart. They sold a piece of property, and like others, were expected to bring the proceeds to the apostles for distribution among the needy. However, they kept back part of the money for themselves, while claiming to have given the full amount. Peter, discerning their deceit, confronted Ananias. "Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for the land? Didn't it belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not lied just to human beings, but to God." The immediate consequence was, a few hours later, his wife Sapphira, unaware of her husband's fate, repeated the same lie and met the same end. This isn't a story about God punishing people for holding on to their money. It is a story about the sanctity of the code, about the corrosive power of deceit, and the spiritual gravity of pretending to give while secretly hoarding. Their sin was not withholding, but lying about their giving, attempting to manipulate the spiritual economy for personal gain while feigning spiritual purity. They violated the very spirit of generous, transparent giving that fueled the early church's abundance. Their tragic end underscores the seriousness of the wealth code fey. It is not a mere suggestion, but a fundamental principle that, when corrupted, can have devastating consequences not just on the individual, but on the flow of blessing for the entire community. It was a stark, undeniable demonstration that the universe and the divine architect knows the true state of your heart. These stories, spanning millennia from the patriarchal tents of Abraham to the communal gatherings of the early church, are not merely historical anecdotes. They are dramatic echoes of a universal truth. a hidden mechanism of prosperity that operates independently of market forces or economic theories. They illustrate that the wealth code isn't about financial transactions alone, it is about the posture of the heart, the spiritual alignment with the divine flow. When we give, we are not diminishing our resources, we are aligning ourselves with the very principle that birthed creation, tapping into an inexhaustible source. But what, you might ask, is the psychological and philosophical underpinning of this astonishment? The answers delve deep into the human psyche and the very nature of reality. At a psychological level, the act of giving shifts our focus from scarcity to abundance. When we hoard, our internal narrative is dominated by fear. I don't have enough. I might lose what I have. The future is uncertain. This creates a constricted, anxious state, a psychological bottleneck that actively repels prosperity. Our energy becomes focused on defense, on protecting what is already there, rather than on creating and expanding. It is like trying to fill a cup that is already full, or worse, a cup whose opening is sealed shut by fear. Conversely, the act of giving, especially when it costs us something, signals to our subconscious and to the universe itself that we have faith enough. It declares, I am abundant. I have more than enough to share. It opens our internal channels, transforming us from a reservoir of fear to a conduit of flow. This isn't wishful thinking. It is a profound reorientation of our internal landscape that influences our actions, our perceptions, and ultimately, the opportunities that present themselves to us. Generosity expands our capacity to receive, creating a virtuous cycle where giving leads to receiving, it's an upward spiral of increasing prosperity, both material and spiritual. Philosophically, this code aligns with the concept of an interconnected universe. No man is an island, and no resource exists in isolation. Everything is part of a grand, intricate tapestry of energy and exchange. When we give, we are not just giving to an individual, we are contributing to the larger ecosystem. We are sending a ripple through the cosmic pond, and the laws of physics and metaphysics dictate that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The energy we put out inevitably returns to us, often multiplied. It is the law of sowing and reaping, a principle as old as agriculture itself. A farmer doesn't hoard his seeds, he scatters them generously, knowing that the soil, the rain, and the sun will multiply his initial offering many times over. The universe operates on a similar, albeit more complex, principle of reciprocal exchange, but the code extends beyond mere reciprocity. It speaks to the very identity of who we are meant to be. Are we meant to be hoarders, clutching tightly to transient earthly treasures, living in perpetual fear? Or are we designed to be channels, conduits, through which blessings can flow, participating in the divine dance of creation and abundance? The Bible consistently points to the latter. We are made in the image of a generous God, a creator who freely gives life, breath, and all things. To embody the code of giving is to align ourselves with our divine nature, to reflect the very character of the Creator. This isn't just about financial prosperity, it is about spiritual maturity, about becoming more fully human, more fully divine in our expression. The nightmares of our modern age often stem from a profound misunderstanding of this code. We chase fleeting pleasures, accumulate mountains of possessions, and yet find ourselves increasingly empty, lonely, and anxious. We are told that success is measured by what we acquire, by the size of our bank accounts, the prestige of our titles. But this relentless pursuit of more often leads to a terrifying void, an existential confusion that no amount of acquisition can fill. This is the nightmare of Midas, a king blessed with the power to turn everything he touched into gold, only to realize, in horrifying clarity, that his greatest blessing had become his most terrible curse, turning his food, his water, even his beloved daughter into lifeless, gleaming metal. He had sought wealth, but gained only isolation and despair. He learned too late that true riches lie not in the accumulation. The code offers healing for these modern struggles. For the anxiety-ridden soul, it offers the peace that comes from trust and release. For the one yearning for purpose, it offers a tangible way to make a difference, to become part of something larger than oneself. For the lonely, it fosters connection, building bridges of generosity that lead to authentic community. It's a balm for the restless heart, a compass for the confused spirit. It begins with a decision, a conscious shift from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. It begins with a willingness to challenge our ingrained assumptions about money, about security, about success. First, start small, but start with intention. Asterisk, asterisk, you don't need to sell all your possessions overnight like the rich young ruler. Begin with small This could be tithing a portion of your income, volunteering your time, offering your skills, or simply being intentionally kind and helpful to those around you. The universe, and your subconscious, doesn't distinguish between a grand gesture and a consistent, heartfelt one. It responds to the energy of giving. Think of it like a muscle. You strengthen it through consistent exercise, not just one. Each act of giving, no matter how small, sends a signal, a powerful affirmation that you are a channel, not a damn second. Cultivate a spirit of gratitude. Asterisk, asterisk, gratitude is the fertile soil in which the seeds of generosity flourish. When we acknowledge and appreciate what we already have, we shift our focus from what is lacking to what is abundant. This creates an open, receptive state. Before you give, take a moment to be truly grateful for the ability to give, for the resources you possess, no matter how humble they may seem. This simple practice magnifies the power of your giving, transforming it from an obligation into an act of joyful overflow. Third, give with joy and without expectation. Asterisk, asterisk, this is perhaps the most crucial aspect of the code. It is an act of love, an outpouring of self. When you give with an expectation of what you will get back, you subtly reintroduce the energy of scarcity and self-interest. You close the circuit. The universe operates on principles of flow, not on contractual agreements. Give freely, knowing that the return is guaranteed, but the form and timing are often beyond your comprehension, often far surpassing what you could ever. Sometimes the return is financial, sometimes it's in relationships, health, peace of mind, or unexpected opportunities. Trust the boundless wisdom of the universe to deliver. Fourth, recognize the diverse forms of wealth. Asterisk, asterisk, the code isn't solely about monetary wealth. It is about a holistic abundance that encompasses financial stability, yes, but also rich relationships, vibrant health, inner peace, creative fulfillment, and a profound sense of purpose. When you give your time, your attention, your wisdom, your love, you are activating the code just as powerfully as when you give money, and often these non-monetary forms of giving open the doors to monetary abundance in unexpected ways. Let's delve deeper into the narrative, building suspense and revealing the code's mechanics through a more contemporary, yet still mythological lens. Imagine a world not so different from our own, teetering on the edge of an existential crisis. Resources are dwindling, tensions are rising, and the pervasive fear of not enough has gripped the collective consciousness like a suffocating nightmare. In this world, the ancient code is all but forgotten, relegated to dusty scrolls and dismissed as naive idealism. But there are whispers, persistent and urgent, among certain hidden orders, guardians of ancient wisdom. They speak of a prophecy, a time when the great clenching would lead to a near-total collapse, unless a heart of flow could be rekindled. These guardians, almost angelic in their wisdom, observed humanity with a mixture of despair and enduring hope. They saw the Midas curse playing out on a global scale face societies, turning all to gold, only to find the gold was inert, unfeeling, and ultimately worthless without life, without connection, without flow. One such guardian, let's call him Arion, an ethereal being whose essence was. He watched as the human heart, designed for boundless generosity, became encased in layers of fear, like a precious gem buried under centuries of hardened earth. He saw the vivid nightmares that plagued humanity, spectral figures of scarcity whispering doubts, grotesque entities of greed gorging themselves into oblivion, their stomachs distended, but their eyes forever hungry. Arion knew that the code wasn't just a guideline, it was a fundamental law, like gravity. But for the soul's economy, when humanity defied it, the consequences were not merely economic, but existential, leading to inner desolation and outward conflict. The great clenching wasn't just about financial markets, it was about the tightening of spirits, the closing of hearts, the erosion of empathy. He recalled an ancient fable, told to him by the Elder of Light, a parable of two neighboring villages. One, named Prospera, was known for its open gates, its shared harvests, its spontaneous acts of mutual aid. If one family's barn burned, the entire village would rebuild it before the ashes cooled. If a child was orphaned, every hearth offered warmth. Their giving was instinctual, and what was the result? Their lands were bountiful, their children healthy, their laughter echoed through the valleys, and their wells never ran dry even in drought. Visitors marveled at their inexplicable prosperity, their vibrant, abundant life. The other village, Umbra, just across the shadowed ridge, lived in stark contrast. Their gates were fortified, their fields meticulously divided. Every act was transactional. Every exchange weighed on a meticulous scale of self-interest. Fear of theft, fear of lack, fear of the other consumed them. They hoarded their grains, fearing winter. They built higher walls, fearing neighbors. Their lives were a constant negotiation against scarcity, and what became of Umbra? Their fields became barren, their children sickly. Their laughter was rare and hollow, and their wells, despite their attempts to dam every drop, frequently ran dry. Their wealth, accumulated through ceaseless vigilance, felt heavy and cold, a burden rather than a blessing. The contrast was stark, a living parable of the code in action and its tragic neglect. Iarion pondered this. How could he, a cosmic observer, help humanity rediscover this forgotten truth before the great clenching reached its irreversible peak? He understood that the revelation couldn't come as a divine decree, but as an internal awakening, a rediscovery of the heart's innate capacity for flow. The answers lay hidden within the very stories humanity told itself, encoded in their myths, their prophecies, their sacred texts. The Bible, he knew, was not just a historical record, but a profound manual for spiritual mechanics, a guide to living in alignment with cosmic laws. His gaze settled on the story of a man named Barnabas, a minor figure in the grand tapestry of biblical narratives, yet a powerful, often overlooked, exemplar of the wealth code. Barnabas, whose name meant son of encouragement, was a Levite. The book of Acts tells us that he sold a field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. This act, simple yet profound, often gets overshadowed by more dramatic events, but Arion saw its true significance. Barnabas didn't just give a portion, he sold an entire fee, a significant asset, a source of future income, a symbol of security. He emptied himself, not out of naive idealism, but out of a deep understanding of the code, a profound trust in the spiritual economy of the nascent church. And what was the return for Barnabas? Not necessarily a new field, not immediate financial gain in earthly terms. His return was far greater, far more impactful. He became a vital pillar of the early church, entrusted with crucial missions. His act of generosity opened the door for his spiritual gifts to flourish, making him an instrument of divine purpose, leading to an abundance of influence, spiritual authority, and eternal reward. His wealth became his impact, his legacy, his profound contribution to the spread of a world-changing message. He gave up a tangible asset and received an intangible, yet infinitely more valuable. This was the code operating at its highest frequency, turning earthly treasure into heavenly currency. The true conflict, Arion realized, wasn't between the rich and the poor, but between the open hand and the clenched fist. The open hand, though sometimes appearing empty, was a conduit for the universe's boundless flow. The clenched fist, though sometimes filled with possessions, was a dam blocking this internal struggle. This spiritual warfare within each individual heart was the true battleground for humanity's future. Imagine if everyone understood this. Imagine the ripple effect, if entire societies embraced this principle. The great clenching would dissipate like mist before the sun. The nightmares of scarcity would recede, replaced by dreams of shared prosperity, of a world where needs are met not through frantic competition, but through joyful collaboration, a constant, vibrant exchange. This concept resonates deeply with modern psychology's understanding of well-being. Studies repeatedly show that acts of generosity, volunteering, and giving money to charity actually increase the giver's happiness. When you give, your brain releases oxytocin, dopamine, and endorphins, a powerful cocktail that creates feelings of warmth, connection, and joy, often referred to as the helper's high. It is as if our physiology is hardwired for generosity, designed to reward us for embodying the code. Our bodies, our minds, and our spirits flourish when we participate in this divine flow. The code is not just a spiritual law. It is a biological imperative for human flourishing. But the serpent of doubt always whispers, "What if I give and nothing comes back? What if I am taken advantage of? What if I truly run out?" This is the voice of the nightmare, the ancient fear reasserting itself. The answer the guardians knew lay in understanding the Fey source, Fey, of the return. It is not about giving to receive. The return comes from the boundless wellspring of the universe itself, from the divine economy that operates beyond human manipulation. It's an investment in a cosmic ledger, a trust in a benevolent system. The climactic moment of this revelation, this understanding, is not a singular event in history, but an ongoing unfolding truth that each individual must discover for themselves. It's a moment of epiphany when it's the realization that you are not just a recipient of resources, but a co-creator of them, a participant in the infinite flow. The code's most profound manifestation, the ultimate unveiling, came through the person of Jesus Christ. His entire life was an embodiment of radical giving, giving up heavenly glory to take on human form, giving his time and energy to heal and teach, giving his very life on the cross. The ultimate act of giving. And what was the return? The salvation of humanity, the promise of eternal life, the resurrection, and the establishment of a spiritual kingdom that transcends all earthly empires. His giving literally reshaped the cosmos, creating an abundance of grace that washes over all who believe. He demonstrated that the highest form of giving is selfless love, and the return is immeasurable. He didn't just preach the wealth code, he was the wealth code in human form, living it out with every breath, every miracle, every sacrifice. So how do we integrate this profound truth into our daily existence, transforming our struggles with money, purpose, and happiness? It's about becoming a conscious conduit, a deliberate participant in the divine flow. Point 1. Fey, reframe your understanding of wealth. ***, true wealth isn't just about what you possess. It is about what you Fey-flay. It is about your capacity to give, to bless, to contribute. Shift your focus from accumulation to contribution. When you aim to be a blessing, the blessings inevitably flow back to you. This is a profound psychological and spiritual shift. Instead of asking how much Fey practice proactive generosity, ***, don't wait until you have enough to start giving. That day rarely comes for those operating from a scarcity mindset. Give when it is challenging, when it requires a stretch of faith. This is where the true power of the code is unleashed, much like the widow of Zarephath. It is about giving from your first fruits, not your leftovers. This could mean make it a non-negotiable part of your financial planning. This simple act acknowledges the divine source of all provision and activates the flow. Point 3. Fey, give your time and talents. ***, financial giving is vital, but so is giving of yourself. Your time, your unique skills, your empathy, your presence, these are invaluable currencies in the spiritual economy. Volunteer for a cause you believe in. Use your creative talents to uplift others. These acts of selfless service generate a different kind of return, a deep sense of purpose, meaningful connection, and an expansion of your own capabilities. You find that the more you pour out, the more your own wellspring of talent and energy is replenished. Point 4. Fey, cultivate an abundance mindset. ***, actively challenge and reframe any thoughts of scarcity. Practice daily gratitude. Visualize yourself as a generous, prosperous individual, a channel for blessings. This isn't just positive thinking, it is a deliberate reprogramming of your subconscious mind to align with the principles of the code. Your beliefs shape your reality, and an abundance mindset attracts. Abundance. Point 5. Fey, trust the process. ***, sometimes the return is an unexpected opportunity, a providential connection, a burst of creative inspiration, improved health, or simply a profound sense of inner peace and joy. Learn to recognize these varied forms of abundance. Trust that when you activate the code through sincere giving, the universe will respond in ways that are perfectly aligned with your highest good. This requires patience. Let's imagine one final epic scenario to solidify this understanding. A modern-day city, Neo-Babylon, is consumed by the relentless pursuit of material gain. Its towers scrape the sky, monuments to corporate power, yet beneath the gleaming surface, its citizens are plagued by an epidemic of loneliness, anxiety, and a gnawing sense of emptiness. The air is thick with the unspoken fear of the collective dream has become a nightmare of endless striving. In the heart of this metropolis, a single individual, Anya, a young artist struggling to make ends meet, stumbles upon an ancient tattered manuscript, a fragment of the Code of Flow. It speaks of the cosmic dance of giving and receiving, of the universe as an endless river of energy, and of humanity's role as either a blockage or a conduit. Intrigued and with little left to lose, Anya decides to experiment. Her first act is small. She sees an elderly street musician, his violin case nearly empty. Instead of walking past, she stops, not just to give him the spare change in her pocket, but to truly listen to his mournful melody, to offer a kind word, a genuine smile. A small act seemingly insignificant in the vastness of Neo. The next day, inspired, she paints a vibrant mural on a neglected public wall, transforming a drab corner into an explosion of color and hope. She asks for no payment, no recognition, just the joy of creating beauty for others. Passers-by stop, captivated conversations spark. Community begins to form around her art. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, an old art school contact, whom she had helped years ago without expectation, remembers her and offers her a commission, a major project that provides unexpected financial stability. Her small acts of kindness blossom into genuine friendships, alleviating her loneliness. Her creative flow, once stagnant under the weight of financial stress, now rushes forth with renewed vigor. She starts teaching art to underprivileged children, giving her time and skill, and in return discovers a profound sense of purpose and joy she never thought possible. As Anya's life flourishes, her presence in Neo-Babylon becomes a subtle beacon. Others, drawn by her inexplicable serenity and success amidst the city's chaos, start to ask her secret. She shares the ancient code, not as a preacher. She explains that the city's nightmare of emptiness is merely the consequence of its collective clenched fist, and the path to its healing lies in opening those hands, not to demand, but to share. Her story becomes a legend, a quiet rebellion against the city's ethos of endless taking. It is a dramatic illustration that the wealth code isn't a complex ritual or a magical incantation. It is a simple, profound truth embodied through conscious action, a shift in the very intention of our hearts. It proves that even in the most cynical, scarcity-driven environments, the divine flow can be reactivated, transforming not just individual lives, but the very fabric of a community. The city doesn't instantly transform, but pockets of hope and prosperity begin to emerge, like green shoots pushing. This is the ultimate promise of the Bible's hidden wealth code. It is not a guarantee of mansions and yachts, though material abundance often follows. It is a guarantee of a life rich in every dimension, purpose, peace, connection, health, and a profound overflowing sense of well-being that no amount of hoarding could ever buy. It transforms the existential confusion of modern life into a clear path, the emotional struggles into spiritual strength, and the inner growth needs into tangible acts of love and contribution. The angels, Arion and his kind, are still watching. They whisper the code across the cosmos, hoping humanity will finally hear, truly hear, and embrace the abundant destiny that awaits. The choice is always ours, to live in the nightmare of scarcity, or to awaken to the boundless dream of generosity. The key, as it always has been, is in your hands. Will you unlock this hidden wealth? That is all for today's video. If you like this video, please subscribe, like it, and support us. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.